Welcome back in Solitude. I'm DJ Hero, and in today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how I process my lead melodies, much like you'd hear in EDM or trance, or if you're familiar with my music, you know I like to lean into those epic melodies, even in my own broken beat projects. There are a couple of very common ways to do it. This one, a little outside of the box, but I feel like it sounds better, cleaner, brighter, and helps keep the mix a lot clearer. So this is what the sound does ultimately sound like. That's with the delay, the reverb, and a little bit of processing to the synth itself. So let's get started. The sound that I'm actually working with was created by Massive. I made it in Massive. It's not an overly complicated patch. I'll put the link in the description below so that you can have it if you'd like, a couple of macros. I'm really not going to get into the actual preset itself. It's pretty self-explanatory and you can have that one. And obviously this works with any sound that you're working with. It doesn't matter, Massive, Serum, Silent, native plugins, whatever DAW you're using, whatever the case may be. There is a little bit of processing in the sound itself. I have the OTT to start, set a little dry, mostly wet, a little bit of adjustments to bring out the color that I want. I have an EQ to bring those out further, and then some saturation, and then ultimately some compression to kind of glue them all together. That is kind of the bass that creates this sound. Obviously pretty dry there, no delay, no reverb. Now the two common ways to do that, the main, kind of the big one that I think a lot of folks use would be the sends, right? You can add the reverb and the delay. But I feel like that gets muddy really fast. Now, I'm not saying that I don't use sends, because I do in in every project. I feel like having the sends for reverbs and delay on a subtle kind of just adding a little bit of texture is great for when you have multiple sounds that you want to have affected all the same way. So if you have many melodies and you want them all to be sitting in kind of the same reverb room, the send's perfect. If you want the same delay time, don't want to have a delay on every single channel, the send, perfect. However, for my lead melodies, I do them differently. And typically what I'll do is I'll use the same settings that are on the sends on the channel itself, and using this technique, it really brings that sound to life and keeps it clean. The second common way to do it would be to add the actual effect right to the chain itself. So here's what it sounds like with the effects on the chain versus the final product. You'll hear the final product a lot brighter and a lot cleaner. Same settings, same plugins, same melody, same everything, except what I'm about to show you preserves that clarity and brings it to life just that much more. So let's get started. First things first, I am going to create a new MIDI channel. We'll call this lead synth. I'm going to paint it yellow. I'm going to put it in a group, synth bus. Now I'm just going to drag over my core sounds to the channel so I don't have to recreate all of them for time's sake. And then I'm going to drag my MIDI down. I'm going to rename it because that part will help keep it clear here in the near future. So first things first, this is what we've got. Right? It's the basic melody, just the synth and the little bit of processing that I have. The first step, we're going to group them. We're going to create a chain. So we now have created an audio effect rack. We've got one chain, and I'm going to call this the main, right? Just grouping them all together. Now, I'm going to create two additional chains, one for each sound, the reverb and the delay. So we'll create that. I'm going to call that reverb, create that, and call that delay. We're going to mute the delay for a moment here, and we're going to mute the main for a moment here. So on the reverb, I'm just going to drag in kind of my go-to, the cathedral setting, straight from the stock Ableton reverb plugin. Make a few adjustments here. Obviously 100% wet. I'm going to increase the decay time to 7 milliseconds or 7 seconds, whatever you want to call that. And I'm going to decrease the pre-delay. I don't have to really worry about the pre-delay. The pre-delay is really kind of there for, so when the main MIDI triggers, that pre-delay time delays the reverb from sounding until whatever time you want, for example, after the note. But in this particular case, I got a workaround on that, so I'm just going to bring that all back to as far zero as you can make it, so it'll sound like this. The next step I'm going to do, I'm going to add an EQ after the reverb, and I'm going to roll off a lot of the low, and I'm going to kind of carve out a bit of the high as well, maybe around, let's just call it 10,000, right? And then I'm going to boost on that high end a bit. Bring this up a little more. 650 is pretty good right there. And then we'll do a little gain makeup. We can control this after the fact, but let's get a little something out of this. Okay. Now we'll switch over to the delay. Same thing. I'm going to add my delay, which I'm a big fan of the Waves Hybrid. It's really simple. If you don't have the Waves products, that's okay. Use whatever stock delay comes with your DAW. Ableton, FL Studio, Logic, Pro Tools, they all come with some really great delays. I just happen to be partial to the Waves Hybrid. I'm going to leave it on 1/8 dotted. I'm going to turn on the ping pong, 100% wet. I'm going to actually do a little low pass down to about 3,000 hertz and a little high pass to about 200 hertz. And that sounds like this. From there, I'm going to add, just like we did with the reverb, I'm going to add an EQ after the delay. And I'm going to treat it kind of like a high-pass filter. I'm going to roll it off at 150. I'm going to turn off the kind of the brick wall aspect of it so I can bring it down a bit. Now, because I set the filter to 3,000 hertz, technically, I shouldn't see anything above 3,000 hertz on the signal. But that's never the case, so that might be a little too steep. We'll do it that way. Roll it off. And then I'm going to peak it up here. Now, if we were to compare the EQs from the reverb and the delay, you'll see that I've boosted them in different frequencies. We have about 1,500 on the delay and about 6,000 on the reverb. That's going to give them their own space. The reverb gets the higher side, the delay gets the mid side. And then together, sounds a bit mucky right now. And then we'll add back in the primary signal. Now, all we've really done now is, by creating this chain, these multiple chains here, is prevent the reverb from acting on the delay and the delay acting on the reverb. But still, the signal really is not much different than using the sends at this point. So here's where the trick comes in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate my channel. I'm going to call this synth sidechain. All right. And on this sidechain one, I'm going to delete all of the effects off of it. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and just do the bass sound. The reason I do that, if you're worried about your CPU usage and you have a preset that's CPU intensive, kicking it back to the initiated preset will help save some processing power. I don't worry about that too much, but you might need to, so I wanted to show you that. From there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually turn the sound off so that we don't hear it at all in the chain. All right. So now, going back to our lead sound here, on the reverb, I'm going to add a compressor. I'm going to actually use the stock Ableton compressor for this one. I'm going to turn on the sidechain, and I'm going to make the input that synth sidechain, that second signal we created. And then I'm going to turn the threshold down to about, we'll just say negative 20 decibels. Now I have the attack set to 0, the ratio set to infinity, and the release at about 50 milliseconds, and we get this effect. Now what's happening is every time the MIDI from the lead melodies triggers, it tells the sidechain to duck behind that MIDI signal, right? So we have the main sound. That main sound, when it plays and the reverb is triggered, the sidechain is telling that chain, this signal, that it has to duck behind the note itself. So without it, with it. And then I'm going to simply copy a duplicate of that to the delay. Same thing. Turn the delay back on. So without it, with it, bring the delay or the reverb back. Now maybe I want a little less reverb, I'll turn it down here. And it's really that simple. So what's happening is when the melody plays, with this duplicate channel being our sidechain signal source, it's telling the sidechain on the reverb and the delay to duck behind the note that's being played here. And that allows that main portion of the sound to still sit up front and be unaltered or unaffected by the reverb and the delay effects that we've added to it. So we'll go back to the basic chain that we had here, the kind of just adding it straight to the signal chain. And this is what we get. And then our new one. You hear it's still brighter, it sits on top more, and it's a lot cleaner, but it still has that same big space that that reverb is creating, and it still has that movement in that space that the delay is creating. So the basic. And then our audio effects chain version. And that's it in a nutshell. The beautiful thing about doing it the way that I do it is any macros that are on the VST, where the sound is coming from here, they get affected the same way. So if I wanted it to be plucky, or I want to filter it, and of course, you can adjust the threshold on both of these to whatever you feel is the best spot for your tune, your mix, and all the other sounds that are around it. Really not a difficult process. It's just the main sound, 2 additional chains, one for the reverb, one for the delay, a duplicate channel to act as the signal source for that side chaining, a couple of side chain compressors on your reverb and delay, and that's that. So I hope you've learned something today. I hope you have enjoyed the tutorial. Give us a like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to find more from me, DJ Hero, search Original DJ Hero, all one word, on Facebook, SoundCloud, Mixcloud, Instagram, and Twitter. It's the same everywhere. Until next time, good luck on your own projects, and we'll see you soon.